Hello, back again, and now I'm going to go back into time. If you haven't seen this kind of video before, I do videos where I go back, look at a defining moment or a situation, whether it's in MMA or pro wrestling. I look at an angle or something, why it never worked out, and I try and give as unique and as dynamic a perspective as to why it didn't happen. And this videos, or this entries one, will be going back into 2005, 10 years ago, bloody hell, because what prompted this topic was the fact that not long ago Christian announced his retirement, or it was kind of mentioned on Raw that he's retired from wrestling. And I know a lot of people have talked about him retiring. I know TV Tracks uploaded something that Solar Monster did, and I wanted to, while he was on my mind, do this video because this is, when it's a topic you're a little bit more passionate about, I think it makes for a better video. So enough of wobbling. 2005, anyone remembers, Christian at the beginning of the Royal Rumble had a backstage segment with John Cena where he challenged him to a battle rap. If you remember it, let me know. It's on YouTube, you can find it just like that. He challenged him to a battle rap and it was a pretty funny segment. He asked Tomko to give him a beat, Tomko refused, and then after that, people were talking about the chemistry between Cena and Christian, and at that time, that is when the steam behind John Cena was really building up, and they were going to make him one of the top two stars in the company, the other one being Batista. And as Cena was being built up, Christian started doing more promos on Raw aimed at John Cena, or freestyle raps aimed at John Cena, and it looked like to a lot of people that Christian was going to be the guy traded to SmackDown, because SmackDown really needed people at that time to feud with John Cena. In other words, Cena was Hulk Hogan, Christian was Roddy Piper. And I remember at WrestleMania, there was the Money in the Bank ladder match. Christian didn't win it, of course. Cena won his title match. And then after that, Christian did even more of these anti-Cena promos. He came out on Madison Square Garden on Raw, and he basically called out the main roster. He declared himself a main eventer. He dissed Cena, called him Marky Mark, and he would beat him. Then Vince McMahon and him came out and done a promo together. Christian really held his own, and it was the first time in a long time where I felt fans were really starting to see Christian as a potential upper mid main event guy that could be moved up that year. And he does that promo with Vince McMahon, and lots of people seem to be into it. The crowd were very into it, which really is a big thing. And then they did a show in England, and then that to me was when things really picked up. Because if you remember, it was Christian and Batista in England, main event match, and the entire UK audience were very pro-Christian, very anti-Batista, and I remember seeing signs all over in support of Christian. It was like he was the main event guy that they all paid to see, not Batista. Batista just happened to be in the ring with him. And I will go back to that show because the week after, when it was re-aired, I noticed that the sound had been tampered with, and they changed things around, and they made it look like the crowd was pro-Batista, anti-Christian, when in reality they were pro-Christian, anti-Batista. And that to me was when we start noticing where things went wrong. Now, as things moved on, Christian did a promo at Backlash, taking shots at JBL and Triple H, Batista, and then definitely John Cena. And again, it looked like the Cena feud was going to pick up. At every point, he was going around saying things about John Cena. It even built up to the point where I think it was like a week before the trade started, he said that he wants to get traded to SmackDown, how he's going to beat John Cena for the belt. And now fans online are talking, and they want Cena and Christian. And what's wrong? It's a fresh matchup. Two guys at that time who've never been in the main event picture. It's something new. Fans are clearly behind it. And I genuinely felt that there was money in seeing those two go together one-on-one, maybe at a SummerSlam, but those two going together one-on-one, and maybe one of the guys that could actually get eventually crowd in favour of John Cena, because he's very good at his job in Christian. Then that night on Raw happened, and that was when Cena was really a big deal, and he came out and he was traded to Raw on the highlight reel. He came out as the guy that was traded to Raw, and that was a very good show. I remember it very, very well. The atmosphere for Cena when he came out was absolutely electric. And then Christian came out, and a lot of fans who had been anticipating another showdown between those two were like, yes, this is finally it. Christian comes out, he has a verbal exchange with Cena, Cena laughs at him, they go back and forth. Then it's announced later on that it's going to be Christian and Cena for the title at Vengeance. So now fans are getting what they want, right? Wrong. This is where we're going to talk about where it went wrong. So that feud is starting, but then they insert Chris Jericho into it. And this is not a knock on Chris Jericho. This is illustrating a point. I don't think that they had faith in Christian being in a one-on-one feud with John Cena, personally. One person pointed out the visual of when Christian stood next to John Cena, and the difference in frame, I think, put the higher-ups like Vince McMahon off. And apparently this still goes around to this day where a wrestler is talked about and they say, well, he's too small, he's not big enough, or he's not tall enough. They still think like that. And they were thinking like that then. And I did hear that rumour back then at that time, that they felt Christian wasn't big enough to be a main eventer, not wide enough, not tall enough. They just didn't buy into him. They all thought he was good, but they didn't think he was big enough. And I think that point was further illustrated when they had to give him an anchor or some support by making it a triple threat match, and it was Jericho. And then as this feud progressed and went on, it was like they were slowly writing Christian out of the picture, and it's more about Chris Jericho and John Cena, and Jericho is now turned on Cena, and now he's in the match because he felt left out, and now it's a triple threat match. And triple threat match happens. It was very entertaining. It was a lot of fun. One of Cena's best matches that year, actually. And then the next night on Raw, again, Cena looked like he was going into the Jericho territory. Christian was slowly being phased out. And then he got traded to SmackDown as he wished, but not that feud with John Cena. So that one-on-one feud that we all thought that we were going to get and hoping for never happened. And then Christian was on SmackDown. They didn't do anything with any of the momentum he had garnered, even though fans wanted to see more of him, or fans wanted to see him in some kind of role, maybe do something with Batista and Eddie Guerrero, God rest his soul. Nothing happened. Christian was kind of just left to flounder. He was in mid-level feuds with Booker T 1 week, and then he was losing to Orlando Jordan, and he was just kind of there and not really important anymore. And the company found stock in other guys like Kennedy, and obviously Batista was being used. And then Christian just, I think it got even worse when I remember watching SmackDown, and he wasn't on it 1 week, and then I watched Velocity, and he was on the main event of Velocity, which is a real step down for a guy that a few months ago looked like he was being pushed into the direction of a top main event summer program. So it was like, And then we all know what happened not long after that. Christian left the company. He left the WWE, he went to TNA. A lot of people felt it was out of frustration because of this. And then Christian had his run in TNA, and then he eventually wound back up in the WWE. But going back to that point, this kind of tells us two things. Number one, or several things. Number one thing that it points out to me is that this company does have a history of not, where the fans want something and then they go against what the fans want. Like right now, fans want Daniel Bryan, or fans want Dean Ambrose, and instead they say, no, this is our plan, Roman Reigns. Fans wanted Matt Hardy that same year, funnily enough, and the fans went, no, guess what, you're not going to get him in the way that you want, we're going to give him in the way that we want. And this is what happened with Christian. And I felt that not only was it because of, they weren't buying into his frame, they were not buying into his frame, and they didn't view him as a main event guy, I also feel that they had their plans. Christian wasn't a part of that plan, and then when it came up, they kind of gave you like a half-hearted attempt at giving us what we wanted, and then once they'd done it, once was enough, right, he's out, goodbye, now we go back to our plan. And I felt that was a big reason as to why Christian and the John Cena feud never happened in the way that it did. Not only did they not buy into him as a main eventer, because I knew that they bought into Edge as a main eventer. I knew that, but they never really bought into Christian as a main event guy. They saw him as a good hand. It wasn't just the fact that he was too small and not more muscular enough. It wasn't just that. It was the fact that he was not a part of their plan. And as history has shown, when you're not a part of their plans, they don't necessarily go with you. They kind of half-heartedly do it. Daniel Bryan is a good example, as I've touched on. CM Punk is another example, as I've touched on. Guys that catch on and then they're kind of like, oh, what, fine. And then they do something. They do something to kind of, you know, fuck with it. And that was the case with Christian. And when he came back, it was kind of the same thing, where fans wanted Christian at a certain level and they kind of wouldn't give it to the fans. And things just happened. And that is my perspective as to why the John Cena and Christian feud never really happened. Not only were they not confident in him, he was not their plan, and then that was it. So I'm going to stop. You let me know what you think. I should add pictures and maybe some videos and stuff next time. If you have a topic for a throwback video that you want me to go back to and explain, write in the comments, let me know. Tweet me, and if you want me to do a throwback video, I will. If you have a throwback video for MMA, I will happily do that too, because there's quite a few topics I can do. If you haven't met me before, I do MMA videos, I do pro wrestling videos, and I'll do all sorts of stuff. So if you haven't, hit that like button, give me some comments below, share this video, tell your friends, and also hit that subscribe button. Take care, peace, and see you soon.